हरि ओम। शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलांगं परशुमृगवरभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किं कुर्वत संजय। श्री भगवान उवाच क्लैब्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्तोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच मदनुग्रहाय परमं गुह्यमध्यात्मसंज्ञितं यत्त्वयोक्तं वचस्तेन मोहोऽयं विगतो मम। मन्यसे यदि तच्छक्यं मया द्रष्टुमिति प्रभो योगेश्वर ततो मे त्वं दर्शयात्मानमव्ययम्। श्री भगवान उवाच न तु मां शक्यसे द्रष्टुम् अनेनैव स्वचक्षुषा दिव्यं ददामि ते चक्षुः पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्। संजय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ततो राजन् महायोगेश्वरो हरिः दर्शयामास पार्थाय परमं रूपमैश्वरम्। दिवि सूर्यसहस्रस्य भवेद्युगपदुत्थिता यदि भासदृशी सा स्याद् भासस्तस्य महात्मनः। ततः स विस्मयाविष्टो हृष्टरोमा धनञ्जयः प्रणम्य शिरसा देवं कृताञ्जलिर्भाषत। अर्जुन उवाच त्वमक्षरं परमं वेदितव्यं त्वमस्य विश्वस्य परम निधानम् त्वमव्ययः शाश्वत धर्म गोप्ता सनातनस्त्वं पुरुषो मतो मे अनादिमध्यान्तमनन्तवीर्यम् अनन्तबाहुं शशिसूर्यनेत्रम् पश्यामि त्वां दीप्तहुताशवक्त्रं स्वतेजसा विश्वमिदं तपन्तम् द्यावा पृथिव्योरिदमन्तरं हि व्याप्तं त्वयैकेन दिशश्च सर्वाः दृष्ट्वाद्भुतं रूपमुग्रं तवेदं लोकत्रयं प्रव्यथितं महात्मन्
Very nice. Thank you, Shalabh. So we were reading chapter 50.
Finish 20, Professor.
So after explaining the nature of the gunas, right? So remember that the discussion here is on how is Purusha being bound, right? Guna Sangat, on account of attachment to the gunas, right? So this idea was started in the Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. There, Kshetra was described as composed of, generated by Prakriti of the three gunas, consisting of even buddhi, mind, so forth, body, etc. Kshetrajna is defined as Purusha, right? And is the experiencer and feels bound because of attachment to the gunas, right? So therefore, this chapter was started with the idea that let us understand the nature of these handcuffs, the nature of the manacles, the nature of the bondage. What are these things that bind? Right? And so Bhagavan says that these are basically the three gunas. So then what is their nature? How should we understand? Because one can only unlock the handcuff if one knows what it is. Where is the handcuff? Where is the keyhole? What key should I insert in there? This is what Bhagavan is teaching most beautifully. So he says, right in the second verse, this is a very important verse actually, idam jnanam upashritya. You see, resorting to this knowledge, they have achieved my nature. Mama sadharmyam agata. So he's saying this is the key. The key is knowledge. So now what knowledge? That he said in the previous verse, param bhuyah pravakshyami jnananam jnanamuttamam. I will tell you the highest and best knowledge of all forms of knowledge, by mastering which yan jnatva munayaha, the silent sages, sarve, all of them, param siddhim ito gataha, who have attained supreme perfection beyond this itaha, beyond this empirical sphere, beyond their phenomenal world. Right? Remember earlier in the Gita, Bhagavan said, Mama Maya Durutyaya. My Maya is hard to cross. So now he's explaining what is the key to unlock the handcuff. And he's saying the key is knowledge, right? And that knowledge is what is there in this chapter. That is why it is good to pay close attention to Bhagavan's words, because they are truly the means to liberation. So in 3 and 4, he has explained, my womb is Brahman, Mama Yonir Mahat Brahma Tasmin Garbham Dadhamyam. And I explained a little bit the Brahmanda Pindanda Aikyam and how that is recognized within the individual jiva. And so I cast the seed therein, and all are born all beings, etc. And then he says, most importantly is verse 5, repeating the point that the handcuff. Sattvam rajastama iti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha nibadhnanti mahabahu dehe dehinam avyayam. So this unchangeable, immutable spirit is bound, right? It binds the embodied jiva through sattva, rajas, and tamas, the prakriti bond constituents. So if you look at the handcuff, that's what you see. You see 3 aspects, right? And then he goes on to describe them, right? Among them, sattva being stainless, illumines and heals. It binds with the clinging to pleasure and to knowledge. And we talked about this. Verse 6, rajas is essentially attachment. Ragatmakam vidhi, source of craving and passion. Trishna, asanga samudbhavam. And it binds by attachment to works. Karma sangena dehi. And tamaha is born of ajnanajam, which is, of course, the root cause of all ignorance. It deludes, mohanam, and it binds by pramada, alasya, nidra. Again, we referred back to the Yoga Sutra. I gave you the references of the 9 obstacles, starting with vyadhi, sthana, pramada, alasya, etc., avirati, so forth. Then, again, Bhagavan says, these 3, sattva causes clinging to pleasure, rajas to works, tamas shrouding knowledge. And then these are not ever present by themselves uniquely in anything in creation. They're always present together. And they also are not static. They're always moving. The gunas are always changing. Their dominance is changing. Subjugating rajas and tamas, sattva comes into being. Subjugating tamas, sattva and tamas, does rajas come into being, etc. So there is always a predominant guna. And then I explain to you how in the cosmic world, there is this cycling of the gunas we see even day to day, right? In fact, if you observe even more closely through the prana, you will see that it even shifts every muhurt, every 48 minutes. When a muhurta is reckoned according to the time in Punya Bhumi of Bharat, then every 48 minutes itself, there is a change in the dominance. But it's down to actually every thought. In fact, because every thought itself springs only because of the gunas are changing at literally with every thought. Only the space between the thoughts is free of the gunas. And that is the abode of Purusha. Right? Nevertheless, the easiest way to understand the guna is, I told you, by observing the day, right? And how our Ayurveda has the same wisdom. We talked about the division of the hours of the day, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. kapha, so rise in Brahma Muhurta before the kapha takes over. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. pitta, eat your meal when the Agni is high, and you can do maximum activity. 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. vata is dominant. 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. kapha starts again. At that time, it's better to go to bed before 10 p.m. And then 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is again pitta, which is not a good time to be active. And then 2 a.m. again, it starts again. Cycle completes. So by learning to align ourselves with the rhythms of the day, circadian rhythm, we begin to understand this guna balance, right? Brahmanda, Pindanda, Aikyam. What is in the Brahmandam is there in the Pindanda. When the Pindanda becomes aligned with the Brahmanda, then that is Dharma, that is Sanatana Dharma, right? In tune with nature perfectly, in perfect harmony. So, then Bhagavan goes on to describe, when the light of knowledge shines at all the openings of the senses, Sarva Dvareshu Dehesmin Prakasha Upajayate, then you know that Sattva is dominant. Then greed, activity, commencement of works, disquiet, Ashamaha, Spruha, desire. These appear when Rajas predominates. Lobha, Pravritti Arambha. And then Aprakasho, Apravrittischa, Pramado, Moha Evicha. Gloom, inaction, error, and delusion. These come when tamas increases. Now, very important, Bhagavan then describes what happens when which guna is predominant at the time of prayanakali, at the time of departing from the body. Yada sattve pravruddhetu pralayam yati deha brit. Passing away when sattva dominates, the embodied self, tat uttama vidam lokan amalan pratipadhyate. This embodied self attains the unstained world. Mala, stained or dirt, amala, unstained, pertaining to the best knowers. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate. When Rajas is dominant, one is born among those addicted to works. And when Tamas is dominant, Mudha yonishu, in the wombs of the ignorant. So, very important again, 16. Karmanaha sukrutasyahuhu satvikam nirmalam phalam. They say that stainless and sattvic fruit proceeds from meritorious works. Rajasastu phalam dukkham. This is hard to accept, but that work which proceeds from Rajas, as having that as the root, that fruit of that is pain. Does that mean all activity is wrong? No, that's not what Bhagavan is saying. The same activity I told you can be done with different attitudes. Remember that? A murderer takes a knife and cuts off the limb of his victim. A doctor takes a knife and operates to heal the patient. The activity is the same. It is cutting the body with a knife. But the intent is very different. The doctor is doing it to save the patient. The murderer is doing it to kill the victim. Third example, Arjuna goes and fights his own kinsmen with an arrow and shoots them. Again, himsa, cutting the body. But it is dharmic because he has the blessing of the Lord and he has to do it. So dharma is a very difficult thing. But the intention behind the action is very important. It is not the action itself. Right? So, therefore, having explained this point, of sattva is born knowledge. Sattvat sanjayate jnana. Rajaso lobha evacha. Of rajas greed, pramada moho tamaso bhavato ajnanam evacha. And ignorance come from tamas. Error, delusion. Then again, this also we talked about. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasa. Those who are confirmed in sattva move upwards. And Rajasic abide in the middle zone, Tamasic go down. And 19, this was also very important. Na anyam gunebhya kartaram yada drashta anupashyati. When the seer sees no agent other than the constituents and knows my status beyond them, gunebhyascha param veti. Mad bhavam so adhigachati. He attains my status. This is what is the joy of meditation. Why is it more enjoyable to sit in meditation than to be blabbering? Because the status of the Lord is easy to see there. Right? That is why there is great bliss in meditation. Ananda. Then, you said we read 20 or not, Rakesh?
Yes, Professor. We read 20.
Okay. So, then Bhagavan says, Katham saha adhigacchati iti, following from that, when the seer sees no other agent. Gunan etan atitya. Atitya, transcending. Remember, gunatita is the one who has transcended goodness. These gunas transcending, three of them, Dehi, the embodied one, Deha samudbhavan, and that have created the embodied self, the body itself, Deha, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, birth, death, old age. 3 of the 6 transformations of all living creatures. Dukkhaihi, and pains. Vimuktaha, free from. Amritam ashnute, attains immortality. Tastes immortality. So, now the entire sort of culmination of the concept of Kshetra Kshetragya is now clear. Kshetragya, which is the one to be known, has been handcuffed. And now you know the nature of the handcuffs. And so Bhagavan says, by attaining this knowledge, by truly knowing, right, and by recognizing this point, there is nothing other than the gunas. There is no agent other than the constituents. When the seer, that true self within each existing, each sentient being, when the seer sees that, then that seer attains immediately the status of the Lord, becomes identical with the Lord, and transcending those constituents from which the body has sprung up, the embodied self is liberated from all these Shadvikara. Actually, only 3 are given, but to be understood as there are 6 transformations. So now, then Arjuna asks a question. Arjuna Vacha, noting a point that provokes a question. Jivan neva gunan atitya amritam ashrute iti prashna bijam pratilabhya Arjuna Uvacha. So please read, who is reading 21? Arjuna Uvacha.
अर्जुन उवाच कैर्लिङ्गैस्त्रीन् गुणानेतान् अतीतो भवति प्रभो किमाचारः कथं चित्रान् त्रीन् गुणान् अतीत वर्धते.
Right. Kair lingaihi trin. By Kair lingaihi first. By what signs? Linga is sign, mark in plural, and here instrumental case, third plural. Kaihi lingaihi. By what sense? Trin gunan etan atitaha. 3 gunas, these fellows, having transcended. Bhavati Prabhu. How is, so that Bhavati goes with Kai Lingaihi. By what signs is the one who has transcended the 3 gunas known? O Lord, Kim Acharaha. How does he behave? Katham cha etan stream. And how does he get beyond? Gunan ativartate. Ativartate. How does he get beyond? So this is very similar to a verse long ago. Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya kesava. Remember chapter 2, I think. So similarly, Arjuna keeps asking again and again. He is very intelligent and he wants to know the various ways in which one can both understand the Gunatita with the intent that he himself may practice and attain that state. Correct? Achha. So now, Kai Lingaihi iti. Kaihi Lingaihi Chimhai. That's a nice word. Chimhai. What is the mark? Trin Gunan Etan Vyakhyatan, which have been described already. Atitaha Atikrantaha, who goes beyond. Bhavati Prabhu. Kima Acharaha. Kaha Asya Acharaha. What is the way of his behavior? How does he behave? Iti Kima Acharaha. Right? Katham kenacha prakarena etan trin gunan ativartate atitya vartate. Very simple, nothing too much. Gunatitasya lakshanam. Arjuna wanted a definition of the sage who has passed beyond the constituents. Gunati tat vopayam cha arjunena prashtaha asmin shloke prashna dvayartham prativachanam Bhagavan uvacha. Yet tavat kaihi lingaihi yukto gunatito bhavati iti tat shruno. The Lord replies in this verse. So there are 2 parts to this question. One is, how is this person recognized? And 2, how did he actually get beyond the constituents? So very clever. When given the chance to ask 1 question, he asked 2. Okay, so what does Bhagavan say? Number 22, please.
श्री भगवान उवाच प्रकाशं च प्रवृत्तिं च मोहमेव च पाण्डव न द्वेष्टि सम्प्रवृत्तानि न निवृत्तानि काङ्क्षति.
Very nice. Pandava, O Pandava prince, O son of Pandu. Prakasham, light. Pravrittim, cha. and the natural order of transformation, action. So I told you what is the nature of the gunas? Never static, ever moving, right? Prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva, and delusion. Na dveshti. He does not hate. He does not hate the three gunas, because these are the products. Prakasham is the product of sattva, pravrittim is the product of rajas, and moham is the product of tamas. So, na dveshti, some pravrittani, when they spring up, na nivrittani kanshati, nor seeks them when they disappear. Right? Essentially, he sees the Lord in the gunas and in everyday empirical existence itself. That's the only way that one cannot hate the gunas. They're arising and they're going away. So, prakasham iti, prakasham cha sattva karyam, we got talked about that, pravrittim cha rajak karyam, moham eva cha tamak karyam. Iti etani na dveshti sampravrittani samyak vishaya bhavena. Udbhutani, mama tamasa, a tamasic mental, he does not hate. A tamasic mental state has arisen. So I am deluded. A rajasic action, essentially painful, has sprung up, which drags me down from my real nature. This slip from my real nature as self is tragic. Likewise, an essentially luminous sattvic state inducing discrimination, promoting pleasure, has arisen. So, as I told you, if in the daytime, by simply observing the day, right, when we see at night, if your mind feels tired, body sits, lies down, mind switches off, turns off all concepts, and the body gets rejuvenated. Then in the morning, the sun rises, and even before the sunrise, one may wake up. So there is raja, overcoming tamas, right? So therefore, the wise then quickly rise, engage in some activity, because I told you that when Brahma woke up, he had to overcome Madhu and Kaitaba, right? So similarly, one overcomes lassitude, sloth, etc., with effort, and then proceeds to the Sandhya Vandanam, to worship the light, the confluence of the two lights, the twilights, sun and moon, right? Now itself you're seeing very beautifully, we just finished Guru Purnima. So now the moon is very full. We are in Prathama actually. And the moon can be seen very beautifully in Makara, right? While the sun is in Karkataka. So nevertheless, this worship of the conjunction of the twilights, morning, evening, and at midday, but at least in the morning, or at least in the evening, is very powerful, right? So at that point, the Gunatita understands that underlying fabric of existence, what is called most beautifully by Elliot Deutsch in his work Advaita Vedanta, a philosophical reconstruction, the timeless plenitude of being is Brahman. There's nothing other than one without a second, vibrating through the entire universe. Right? If at least once in one's day, one doesn't remember that, then the activities of the day and the mind will overwhelm us and delude us. Right? And so this observational capacity, that at night, this mind was overwhelmed by tamas. And so it went to sleep. It did not present any objects in front of it. Then in the morning, As the sun came up, it went into Jagrat Avastha. It woke up. It started presenting images. Those images impelled an activity. But that activity can be good too, right? So the distinction in the buddhi as to what is dharmic activity and what is adharmic activity, when that has arisen, then the mind engages in the dharmic activity for its own good, not out of a moral compulsion, but out of innate wisdom. Swami Shivananda says that the thought that we have impels us to make a choice. When we repeat the choice, it becomes a habit. And the mind is nothing but a bundle of habits. When you repeat the habit repeatedly, then what happens? They say it is his character. And character is destiny. So if you want to change your destiny, the only control you have is over the thought at this instant. And it is not a crime that contrary thoughts will arise. But every time the choice is exercised at this instant to gently move the mind towards the better choice, right? Then what happens? It becomes a habit. That's all, right? In the Kathopanishad, remember that Yama tells Nachiketas, there are two paths, Shreyaha and Preyaha. Shreyaha, that which is better for you, Preyaha, that which is pleasing. And he says you must choose wisely. The great Upanishads are not moralistic. They understand that various choices are made, right? But the wise one chooses out of wisdom. So the only way that to bring about positive change in any individual is by encouraging the intrinsic wisdom within them, at least among sattvic people, right? If there is no sattva, then the only way to encourage that is through force or danda, right? Correct? The wise one doesn't need that. Wise one naturally corrects themselves, right? So that is the point. So now, so this ability to observe, right? Only he whose vision is defective hates the states. Not so the sage who has transcended the constituents. Unlike the sattvic, the rajasic, and the tamasic man who desires these states when they lapse, the sage does not desire them when they disappear. So, for instance, the tamasic person does not have a clear idea of what is dharma. Right? They do things randomly and at wrong times. Right? And the fruit of those is ignorance, delusion, pain. Right? The rajasic one is impelled by activity, right? And may do mixed kind of activities, right? But undoubtedly gets restless if something is not happening. The sattvic one is striving after knowledge and after pleasure too of the senses, which can be dharmic pleasure, right? This is natural. If you eat a good sweet, you are going to taste it. That's because you have senses that are connected to the mind, right? There's nothing wrong with that, correct? But the wisdom is keeping the awareness that this is nothing but sattva that is arisen and is giving me this joy, right? You see, seeking after knowledge also is definitely very important. So always the received wisdom from our gurus is transcend tamas by rajas. That is, if you are feeling sluggish, exercise, get yourself into an active state. This is very good, right? Get active. There's nothing wrong with that. What you're doing, you're just overcoming tamas with rajas. But when you get active, if you can direct the mind into a higher type of activity, of the activities that we can choose, can we choose a nicer activity, a better activity, right? Something that is informed by illumination, right? Of the higher buddhi, the sattvic buddhi. That is even better. And then ultimately, Bhagavan says the goal is to go beyond all three, right? Beyond all duality and opposites. So next one, please.
उदासीन अवदासीनो गुणैर्यो न विचाल्यते गुणा वर्तन्त इत्येव योऽवतिष्ठति नेङ्गते.
Right. Now, before we move on, there is actually a little piece, even in the last commentary, which is very nice. The sage's attitude to these states is not obvious to the outsider. This is very important. So, यथा च सात्विकादिपुरुषः सत्त्वादिकार्याणि आत्मानं प्रति प्रकाश्य निवृत्तानि काङ्क्षति न तथा गुणातीतः निवृत्तानि काङ्क्षति इत्यर्थः. एतत् न परप्रत्यक्षं लिङ्गम्. एतत् न parapratyaksham lingam. What does that mean? Pratyaksham is that which is in front of the eyes, evident. Parapratyaksham, evident to the other one. Lingam, mark. But this mark is not evident. The mark of the Gunatita is not evident, obvious to the outside. This is why they say that one cannot judge the actions of the gyanis. Right? Kim tarhi? Why is this the case? Swa atma pratyakshatva atma vishayam eva tat lakshanam. The sage, being evident only to the self, the sage alone may perceive his inner marks. Nahi swatma vishayam dvesham akanksham va paraha pashyati. An outsider, of course, cannot discern the inwardly felt aversion and attachment. Because remember, I told you that the action can be performed with different intentions, right? So we cannot judge the action. How can anybody know the inner mind of the actor other than the actor himself, right? So therefore, this situation has been very nicely clarified by Bhagavan in his commentary. That's why this is a very deep commentary. Then we go to the next one. Atha idanim gunatitah kimachara iti prashnasya prativachanam. Now is given the reply to the question, how the transcendent sage behaves. So, udasina avadasina, seated as if indifferent. Gunair yo na vichalyate. He is not disturbed by the gunas. Guna vartanta ityeva. He stirs not but remains steadfast, holding that constituents alone prevail. This idea was coming before also, that gunas play with the gunas. Yo avatishtati na engate. He remains steadfast, stirs not. As if indifferent. He is the knower of the self. He is not disturbed from his discriminating vision by the constituents. To maintain the meter intact, the active voice is used instead of avatishtati, anutishtati. Avatishtati, okay. And 24, please.
Samadukha sukha swastha samalostasma kanchanaha tulye priya priyo dhiras tulye nindatma sanstutihi.
Very nice. Sama dukkha sukha swastha. Dukkha is pain, sukha, pleasure, equal in both. Sama dukkha sukha swastha. abiding in himself. Sama loshta ashma kanchanaha. Loshta is a clod of earth, stone and gold, kanchana. To the wise, these are the same. Tulya priya apriya, pleasant and the unpleasant. To the dhiraha, the wise. Tulya nindatma samstutihi, censure and praise. Because when wisdom dawns, you realize the nature of the world will one day praise you and next day also censure you. The same person. And that will be very funny when you see that. Right? So this, when the wisdom becomes very clear, then these opposites, this is basically a, each of these are opposite experiences. Right? So, and indifference to opposites. Next one, please, 25.
मानापमानयोस्तुल्य तुल्यो मित्रारिपक्षयोः सर्वारम्भपरित्यागी गुणातीतः स उच्यते.
Very good. Mana apamana, again opposites, honor and disgrace. Tulyaha. And also tulyaha. Mitra ari. Ari, foe. Mitra, friend. They're taking sides. Those positions. He is equal to both. Sarvarambha parityagi. Does not initiate any action. Gunatita, such a one is styled the transcendent sage. That is, such a person is like. So, in the sense, Sarvarambha parityagi means that he does not see his doership in the actions. In that sense, right? Recognizing that the gunas themselves are playing and moving. And why is this? You see, this Mitra Ari, after all, sometimes our interests converge. And then we think there's a friendship. Sometimes the interests diverge. And then the same person seems to be an enemy. Who can control the convergence and divergence of interests? Correct? Right? So the ability to look beyond that. So the more our actions are guided not just by is this good for me, but is it good for all around, right? That itself begins to start to reach that level, right? So actions are works undertaken to promote purposes, seen or unseen. The nature of the sage is such that he does not initiate any action, renounces all actions except what is meant to support life in the body. Such a one is called the transcendent sage. And the characteristics set forth in verses 14, 23 to 25 demand effort to achieve. The renouncer, the seeker after liberation, has to cultivate them. They being the means leading to the state of transcendence. Once secured, these characteristics become directly discernible in the transcendent sage as his unique marks. Now is given the reply to the question how one is to transcend the three constituents. So 26, please.
मां च यो व्यभिचारेण भक्तियोगेन सेवते सगुणान् समतीत्यैतान् ब्रह्मा भूयाय कल्पते.
Very nice. Mam cha, to me who, yo, avyam, that should be avyabhicharena. Yeah, there is a typo in the main text. It should be avyabhicharena, not avyamicharena. Mam cha yo avyabhicharena, bhakti yogena sevate. Unwavering yoga of devotion. So from the word root chara, which is to move about, so unwavering, avyabhicharena, and through the instrument of bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion, he who serves me, sagunan, he samatitya, overcoming the gunas, etan, these gunas, brahma bhuyaya kalpate, becomes fit for the status of Brahman. And he, the renouncer or worker who serves with yoga of love, of undeviating devotion, me, Lord Narayana, dwelling in the hearts of all beings, transcends the constituents. Love here means devotion. And the yoga of love has as essence discriminative knowledge resulting from divine grace. Because bhakti is what? Swaswarupa anusandhanam. The desire to know one's true self is bhakti. Defined by Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya himself in his Tattvabodha. So, therefore, this discriminative knowledge resulting from divine grace, such a sage becomes fit, competent for winning liberation. Brahma Bhuya means status of Brahman. Kuta etaditi, what is the rationale of this? Suddenly he has switched from talking about constituents to devotion to me. So 27 please.
ब्रह्मणो हि प्रतिष्ठाहम् अमृतस्य व्ययस्य च शाश्वतस्य च धर्मस्य सुखस्यैकान्तिकस्य च.
Beautiful. Why? Because indeed I am the ground of Brahman. Brahmano hi pratishtha aham amritasya, of the immortal, avyayasya, of the immutable, the unchanging, shasvatasya, that which is eternal. Of what eternal? Dharma, eternal righteousness, sanatana dharma, shasvata dharma, sukhasya, and of this ekantikasya, the unfailing bliss. Also, I am the ground of that. Bhagavan declares that he is the true self. He is the Atma, the Paramatma. He is the Parabrahman. So therefore, devotion to him unfailingly will lead to transcendence of the gunas. Right? The easiest way is what he is describing. Because by seeing this Narayana dwelling in the hearts of all beings, this Bhakti Yoga enables anyone to transcend the constituents. Iti Sri Mahabharate Shatasahasryam Samhitayam Vyasikyam
भीष्म पर्वणि श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु
Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Gunatraya Vibhaga Yogo Nama Chaturdasho Adhyaya. So, Brahmana iti. For I, the inner self, am the ground in which dwells Brahman, the supreme self. When we are worshipping Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Lord Narayana, we are worshipping none other than the self indwelling within us. What is the nature of this Brahman? I just told you the nice definition, timeless plenitude of being. It is the immortal, so timeless, immutable, unchanging, sustainer of eternal righteousness, that is of knowledge, of righteousness and of unfailing bliss. Shasvatasya cha nityasya, dharmasya dharma jnanasya, jnana yoga dharma praptyasya, attainable through the yoga of knowledge and righteousness. Sukhasya, ananda rupasya. This anandam, from the Panchakosha, explained in Taittiriya Upanishad, the Anandamaya Kosha is even interior than the Vijnanamaya Kosha. It is even interior than the Buddhi, than the Sattvic Buddhi. When the mind turns within, then this Anandam is experienced. A reflection of that Anandam is what is seen as Vishayanandam, the pleasure in objects. Aikantikasya, Anandarupasya, Aikantikasya, Avyabhicharinaha, Amritadi Swabhavasya, Paramananda Rupasya, Paramatmana Pratyak Atma Pratishtha, Samyak Jnanena Paramatmataya Nischiyate. The truth has already been affirmed in 1426. The inner self is ascertained to be the supreme self through right knowledge. The inner self is the ground of the supreme self, whose essence is immortality, etc., and the highest bliss. Tat etat brahma bhuyaya kalpate iti uktam. This truth has already been affirmed in 1426, becomes fit for the status of Brahman. That power of God by means of which Brahman functions to promote well-being, etc. of the devotees is the same as Brahman or myself. For power and its possessor are one. Yaya cha Ishvara Shaktya Bhakta Anugrahadi Prayojanaya Brahma Pratitishthate Pravartate Sa Shaktihi Brahmaiva Aham Shakti Matoho Ananyatvat. Because the power of Brahman is Shakti or Maya, and they are indistinguishable, just as fire and its power to burn. Ananyatvat, because of their unity, iti abhipraya. This is the idea. Iti Srimat Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Govinda Bhagavat Pujyapada Shishya Srimat Shankara Bhagavataha Kritau Srimat Bhagavad Gita Bhashye Gunatraya Vibhaga Yogo Nama Chaturdasho Adhyaya. Any questions?
So I have
Mate, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Shiva. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can go. Okay. No, I was just saying, like, in this chapter,
Mhm.
Bhagwan has described the nature of the gunas, but but he has also given a way to transcend them, and he's given special importance to devotion. So it's something to observe, I guess. Out of so many ways to transcend, he has given special importance on the devotion.
Right.
So just an observation.
Certainly, Shiva, yes.
Because on one of the I remember, like, one of the previous lectures you mentioned, like, one other way was meditating on the senses, like reducing multiple to 5 and then reducing the 5 to 3 and then to 1. So maybe meditating on the senses and then meditating on the gunas, like after so many ways, like Bhagwan has given the way of devotion, maybe because that's, and since you said it's the easiest way. So
right. And as I said, from the highest standpoint, there's no difference in the two. What Bhagavan is, what the commentary is saying is the very desire also to understand the senses and to understand the gunas also comes from Bhagavan only. Right? So whether we think of worship as exterior or interior, they are both the same thing in a way. Undoubtedly, the exterior worship is more easy to conceptualize earlier, and it's definitely to be cultivated. Right? Remember when we read Tripura Rahasya also, it says, like, they talk about Krito Upasaka and Akrito Upasaka. Right? Krita Upasaka means the one who has done the worship already. Parashurama was instructed to worship for many years, 12 years, I believe, he did worship of Devi before he became fit to receive the instruction, right? Correct? And yet he did ask the question. He said, I'm doing all these devotions, and yet when I look at that person in Samadhi, the guy whom he crosses, he says, what is special about him? Right? So the Bhagavan is absolutely right. The easiest way is the external worship, right? But as you know, first, how does it start? It may start elaborately, right? Is it necessary? Is all that necessary? First, you may do Shodashopachara Puja, etc., etc. And remember, I also told you, first, the notion is, oh, God is in the temple, right? So one visits the temple. Then suppose there is a snowstorm, then that day is there no God? You will not go to the temple? No. So then wisdom dawns, and you say that, well, God can be at home also. So the person installs a murti at home and starts puja at home. Very good. So one day, let's say you're struck down by the flu and you can't go to the puja place. So then where is God? No God that day? Cannot be true. Eternal. So then the mind starts turning, okay, maybe the Lord is within this temple called the body, right? And then the mind turns inwards. And then after it is turned inwards and sees the Lord within, then sees the Lord without. Within and without, right? Then if you ask the question, where is the Lord? Everywhere. There is no place where the Lord is not, right? And so Bhagavan is definitely emphasizing Bhakti Yoga. Absolutely. The name Krishna and Rama are very easy to memorize, and they also have very deep significance. Because Rama means the mind that is delighting in Brahman, right? So keeping the image of Rama or Krishna, the Nam Japan, these are definitely. Now, if you go deep into Bhakti Yoga, there are 9 ways, right? And one of them is Sankirtanam, etc. But then there are also levels in which one attains in Bhakti Yoga. And there is also there the idea of Salokya, Sayujya, right? Residing in the same loka as the Lord. Right? And those are ultimately the same as meditative states. They're the same thing. For instance, you take somebody like Valmiki, right? How did he become a sage? How did he become a rishi? Do you know the story?
Yes, Prasad, meditating on
Yeah. So,
Ram.
he was taught the word Rama. And then he meditated. And the legend goes he meditated till anthills grew up around him. Right? That's bhakti, right? But is it not also dhyanyo? Right? See, when bhakti becomes more and more distilled, right? It is only presenting one concept, the Lord, the Lord, the Lord, the Lord. Right? Rama, 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 Rama. Right? That is nothing but dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Right? So the problem with bhakti that most people think is they get distracted by thinking it is multifarious. Somebody wears a big silk jibba, whatnot, puts 3 things, chandan, whatnot, as an expensive gold thing, goes and does it. Bhadam, bhadam. Yes, he does a great archana. Oh, very good. This person has a lot of bhakti. There's Rajasic bhakti. Rajasic bhakti wants to show off to everybody. I am very pious. See, the true Sattvic bhakti doesn't care what anybody thinks. It doesn't care. It may be a small shrine. There may be no shrine at all. But the mind is pure. And the mind is constantly. Remember right in the beginning, he said externally the links, the lingai, he will not be seen so easily. Right? There is no need to be ostentatious in one's devotions. What is important is to be sincere and honest within our mind. And the Lord knows, right? Inside, we know there is somebody who knows everything that we think and do, right? So, the misunderstanding of bhakti is that it is exterior and that it is ostentatious or that it is elaborate. All those are not true. They are a stage. They are a phase, right? So if somebody calls you and says, hey, how come you're not showing up and doing your bhakti? Right? Right? You can go, certainly. But what is important, you be true to your own practice. Right? Frequently, there are bhajans, bhajan meeting. I want something very peculiar. People say, please come, bhajans at 6:30 on Thursday. I'm like, why on Thursday? Why not every day? I do bhajan every day. Why do you, one day you get it in your head, you want to do group bhajan and you think if I don't come, I'm not very pious. But I'm doing bhajan every day. What is this big dum-dumuri of bhajan on Thursday? You know what I'm saying? So attain that state. Come to that state where it doesn't matter what others say about bhajan. That must be your state. Your intensity should be so superior that anybody who turns around and says, you know, people ask me all the time, will you come at 6:30? 6:30 is not a time when I want to be around you. You can do your bhajan. It is the time that I've been doing before you were even before the thought arose in your head that you should do bhajan. That should be your state. That is bhakti. Unwavering, right? Devotion. Avyabhicharam. Whether anybody says or doesn't say, it should not matter. The tug is coming from within. Right? And you can sit in dhyan and do bhakti. Why not? You sit in meditation, you bring the image of the Lord in front of you. That is bhakti. It's a very deep bhakti. Even without any external things, you can have that bhakti. You can be sitting on the train coming on the subway and you can have bhakti. Why not? Right? You can be walking and you can say, be mentally reciting Gayatri Mantra. What is wrong with that? Walking meditation. You can be driving and you can be saying Om Namah Shivaya. Why not? Everything has a rhythm, right? As the mileposts go by, there can be a repetition. So, and that's the creativity, right, Shiva? Don't you agree? Because in our lives, we don't have the time sometimes to set aside and go. So that's why I'm saying, try to adapt it into your day-to-day life. Whatever you can. That will give you instant success. Right? So you raise a good point. Indeed, he's right. The Lord is right. I'm just saying, expand our notion of bhakti and allow it to come in at any opportunity. That would be wonderful, right? That way we can satisfy both our current existence and the truth in the Gita. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Mahesh, you had another question?
Very beautiful. You covered my question. Answer. Thank you.
I think you're doing it already, right? You listen to podcasts and things when you're...
Yes, I listen to you. Repetition of the mantras, Purusha Suktams. So trying, making use of the time, like you mentioned, creative being, trying to make use of the time, we can't avoid, right? So every day we go through different stages, sometime, sattvic, rajasi, tamasi, right? But in the end, reside, right? Devote. So that is the key, right?
Yeah.
So
you're all doing very well. I mean, I know that Shiva also in his driving or sometimes he's still connecting. That's the point. That is the truth. That is the devotion. That is the devotion. That is the bhakti. Not giving it up, even in the spite of changes and, displacements of various kinds. Very good. Any other questions? Okay, if not, shall we say Shanti Mantram? And then Om Tachamyora Vranimahe Gatum Yajnayam Gatum Yajnapataye Daivi Swastirastunaham Swastirmanushebhyah Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. Have a lovely evening and weekend,
Namaste.
and look forward to seeing you soon.